let's please just be so super honest for a second. If people are constantly ignoring your boundaries and walking over you, talk over you, take advantage of you, talk down on you, and basically just in any way don't treat you how you want to be treated, whether that is in friendships or relationships or even professional settings, I have been in this situation. I'm here to tell you from experience that you could be the common denominator. I'm not saying that everybody is perfect and you're wrong, but what I am saying is most people will treat you the way that you have trained them that you allow. The way you have trained them that you want to be treated by what you allow in and out of your life and how you treat yourself. Today I am breaking down my 5 laws of self-respect that have changed my life. These are the rules that most people were never taught, and once you implement these into your life, they will stop you having to constantly monitor what should I say, what should I do, how am I going to get them to treat me better. You will naturally start just getting better treatment because you will portray that self-respect that commands it without you having to say a word, and that is the goal. And of course, like always, there is a little workbook down below you can download if you want to go a little bit further and implement this. And let's just dive straight into step number 1 because we have no time to waste. Law number 1 is the law of silent standards. The thing that most people get wrong is they think that they have to say things, but then their actions don't actually back it up. So you can say, I'm the prize, I deserve to be treated good, I have high standards. Well, it's great, fantastic, slay. But if your behavior does not demonstrate that, nobody is going to pick up on the behavior, because if you're constantly A, treating yourself in a way that says otherwise, or B, allowing other people to treat you in a way that says otherwise and not doing anything about it or reducing access, why would they think you're serious about all these words coming out your mouth? So people learn from unspoken patterns. So for example, if the vibes are off somewhere or people aren't being really nice to you in a situation, leaving early, respecting yourself enough to be like, I don't want to be in here. When somebody asks something of you, just being able to say no without over justifying and over explaining yourself as though you not being overly available means there's something wrong. Declining invitations that don't align with you without feeling guilty about it. Or disengaging with someone and reducing access to them when they start crossing a line or disrespecting you. These are all the behaviours that demonstrate self-respect, which therefore make other people respect you. You're not just hanging about, you're not just waiting about to see what the vibe is. You have to actually show that you value yourself, because you're training your mind and other people that you value yourself enough not to be in that situation, which is one of the most important things. Understanding the moment you start trying to convince people, you lose authority. You do not have to beg people to understand. You do not have to over-explain to people. I'm going to give you an example right now. Let's say there's 2 people, person A and person B. Person A says, I don't like when you talk to me like that. I don't like when you make jokes about that. But then when people do it, they just go, oh, I said I don't like it. And they keep staying in the conversation, letting it happen and not doing anything about it. And when I'm saying doing anything about it, I don't mean genuinely like acting up and like starting to fight this person, but I mean walking away, being like, listen, I've said to you I'm not comfortable with this. If you're going to do this in my presence, you're not going to be able to be in my presence. And not using your words for that, but demonstrating it by actually walking away, which is what person B does. The first time someone says something, they might be, okay, don't speak to me like that. But then when the person does it again, they say, no, I'm not engaging with you anymore. They walk away. They do not go, why are you speaking to me like this? I told you you shouldn't speak to me like this, and you have to respect me, and blah, blah, blah. Trying to justify to them why they should meet that standard, but you're not showing them there's any real consequence to it unless you act in alignment with that. You shouldn't be doing this out of the idea of, okay, if I do it, then they'll finally respect me. You should be doing it to be like, I need to respect myself enough. Like, what the hell? Why am I just saying about letting all these people do this stuff to me and get away with it? I respect myself more than that. And then them respecting you is a natural consequence of your own self-respect. So your practical tool for this week, I want you to pick one situation where you would normally tolerate behavior you don't like, whether it's just somebody saying something a little bit off to you, whether it's a partner showing up really late for a date and not putting in any effort, whatever the recurring behavior that's happening where you feel like you're not being respected, a friend joking about your insecurities, and I want you to remove yourself from that situation in real time, and I want you to remind yourself, I respect myself enough, no, I deserve more than this. And I just want you to do it with one area, because you will see how powerful that is. Law number 2 is the law of selective energy. You have to align who you are and your energy and what you give it to the person that you want to be. And this is broken into 3 main parts: the law of alignment, the law of non-participation, and the law of selective energy. So the law of alignment, every single behavior you have has to match the person you want to become. Every single behavior you have has to be like, okay, that's self-respecting version of me. Would that self-respecting version of me do this? If not, why am I? Would she tolerate this? Would she act this way? Would she say this? Would she reply this way? You have to create this filter in your brain that you start running everything through. The law of non-participation is now where you really have to hold yourself to a certain level, and it's going to be difficult because most of us are caught up in all of this stuff. You have to be able to refuse participation in dynamics that diminish you. Gossiping is not good for you. Disrespectful conversations, manipulative arguments, emotional chaos, having to justify yourself to other people. Anything that does not then align with that version of yourself has to go. Most people think that self-respect means winning these situations. Like, if I win this argument, then I respect myself, so I'm going to win it for myself. That's not self-respect. Self-respect is being like, you've wasted enough of my time. I know I'm right. I don't need to argue or justify this to you. I'm going to go. That is what true self-respect is, and that's always the people that win. Because if people know they can get a rise out of you and you're trying to challenge them and trying to win this conversation, they have grounds to manipulate you on. The last part, which is the law of selective energy, just ties all of these together. Literally auditing your day every single day. I want you to come home and look at your day and be like, where did I give my energy today that I don't want to? And don't beat yourself up about it, but when you start being in a reflective habit of looking back and being like, what did I wish I didn't give my energy to? What didn't deserve my energy? What did I put too much effort into that I should have just been like, you know what, the self-respecting me wouldn't have done that? And you start reflecting it, you'll start getting in a better habit of being able to do it in real time before you even entertain the situation in the first place. So your practical step for this is a little energy audit. Whenever you feel pulled into something, you feel triggered by something, you feel like someone is not respecting you right, and you want to do something about it, I'm going to need you to ask yourself these 3 questions before you give your energy to anything. Is this conversation respectful? Is this situation productive? And is this worth the energy of my future self? If the answer to any of these is no, I'm going to need you to remove yourself. Law number 3 is the law of composure. This is such a winning one for self-respect. One of the fastest ways to lose respect in a situation is to start defending yourself emotionally. When someone questions your value or your character or your intentions or your capabilities, whatever it is, instinct is usually to defend and convince and explain and try and protect yourself, but you're acting out of the trigger. You're not taking a moment to be like, what is genuinely the best course of action for me right now that leads to long-term respect, which is always composure. You want to prove that they're wrong, but the second you try to do this, you're doing something very dangerous. You're positioning them as the judge. You're now putting them in a situation where their opinion and their validation and their response obviously has a hold over you, so they are in the position of power. That leads to you having no respect in the situation as well as no control. Self-respecting people do not do that because their worth is not something that needs to be debated. So something that we want to master with this law is emotional non-reactivity. So let me give you an example. Imagine someone says something unfair about you. If your instinct is to be like,
no, that's not true because what happened wasn't what my actual intention was, and blah, 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 blah.
Someone with strong self-respect might just say, oh, that's not accurate. They don't need to explain themselves because you know it's not true. Why does that person's misinterpretation have so much of a hold over you? Sometimes you can also just say nothing at all. If you feel like people are spreading rumors and people are talking nonsense, you defending yourself is honestly only going to make it worse. And again, it's only going to drain your energy. When you feed it, you make it bigger than it is. Like if somebody was to then start a rumor about you, for example, and then you start going around trying to defend it and be like, hey, have you heard this? Like, this is not true, and blah, blah, blah. You're adding fuel to the fire. You're expanding it. It's suddenly going to become this bigger thing that spreads about even more now because you're giving it so much energy. If somebody comes to you and asks you about it, you can be like, that's not true. Of course, it's not okay that that person did it, but you have to be mindful of what this is going to lead to future reactions towards you. When people know that they have that emotional pull over you, that if they do something towards you, you're going to start acting all emotionally, they know they have control over you, and it makes you easier to manipulate and disrespect. So, practical rule, I want to give you a 5-second composure rule. The next time someone says something triggering that you don't agree with, I need you to just take 5 seconds. It might feel like a long time, but it's not. And I need you to breathe and think before you react. And you're going to choose one of 3 responses. A calm correction, like, that is not accurate. An enforced boundary, like, I'm not engaging with this anymore, and then actually doing the behaviour and walking away to back it if they keep trying to continue. Or 3, silence and disengaging. Composure protects your power. Self-respect means having the courage to be able to remove yourself. And this is probably going to be the hardest one because there's so many reasons why we stay in situations. It may be a really toxic job where we're never getting the credit we deserve, a relationship where we're not getting treated the way that we deserve to be treated, and we justify these things because of other factors, like I really need the money for this job, which valid by the way, or I've had so much history with this person, we've been friends for years, I love this person, I know they have the potential to change. and we bring in all these factors, but they're not accurately representing what is going on right now, which is what you have to pay attention to. One of the clearest signs of self-respect is your ability to walk away from something when you realize it's not in alignment with you. Not after months and months and months and years and years and years of trying to beg people to change and beg situations to change. If you realize that you are not going to get what you need out of that situation and it's not serving you in your life how you needed it to, you're going to need to be willing to walk away from it. You have to be like, this behavior is not acceptable in my life. And I feel like we are really bad for this in relationships. We will be like, they didn't mean it, they're having a bad day, they're going through a lot, thinking, yeah, but once this happens it will change, and once that happens it will change. Walking away is really difficult because it forces you to accept reality, which a lot of us do not like to do. It means letting go of the hope that somebody's going to suddenly become different, and that is a really hard thing to do. But if you've not got like this huge situation in your life that's just easy to walk away from, and it's not as obvious as that, it can also be done in other ways. Walking away can start in small ways. So I've got some examples here. It could be like replying less, declining more invitations, ending conversations early, emotionally disengaging from unhealthy dynamics. So let's say, for example, you have a job and you feel like your coworkers are not treating you with any respect, and you can't quit that job right now. Your version of walking away right now could be, you know, every time where they're all out going for drinks and you know afterwards they're going to be rude to you and disrespectful to you in those situations, just going less, deciding you're going to engage with them less. Find that small way where you can create distance to just give yourself a little bit of mental relief so you can make space for that newfound self-respect to come in, and then you will eventually get more confident in the decisions you have to make to support your self-respect. So your practical step for this one is the alignment question. The next time that you tolerate yourself in a situation that feels wrong, always just ask, is this behavior acceptable in my life? And this is the part that's going to hit. Am I only around this hoping it will change? And if I knew it was never going to change, would I stay? That is the one that gets you, that exposes where you're staying in places you should not be. Now we're moving on to law number 5, which is the law of consistent standard, and this is specifically relating to how to stay respected and how to respect yourself in front of toxic people. Your standards matter most when somebody tests them, because it is so easy to have standards when you don't need to enforce them and there's nothing in your life challenging them. The time where you really see if your standards uphold and if your self-respect is real or just something you say is when it comes to people actually trying to test those standards, these toxic people in your life. When everyone is kind and nobody is crossing your boundaries and nobody's disrespecting you, it's so easy to be like, yeah, I have high standards. But when somebody does, are they still as consistent? Do you hold them? Do you maintain them? Because if not, they're not real. It doesn't come from real, true self-respect. Self-respect is really tested the moment where someone tests your limits, they push a little further than you would have liked, ignore what you said, use guilt to make you question yourself, and this is where many people lose self-respect because they abandon their standards when they feel uncomfortable. If your self-respect only exists when other people behave, well, it's not real. It's coming from this ideal reality where you would like to have these standards and be set in them, but you're actually too scared to sit through the discomfort of doing it. So I'm going to give you a little practical step called the broken record method. You have to be consistent with your standards. Say the same thing. Act in alignment with it. Pull away again. Are they question it? You don't over explain more. You say, just because you've continued to do it, just because you've asked me several times, doesn't mean my answer is going to change. You need to be so consistent, and you need to be consistent in several areas of your life. So let's say there's this guy and he really disrespects you when he's dating you, and he just is really careless with your time and he's always making plans last minute, but then you show him whenever you're out with him, and then work phones and they're asking you to do things last minute and they're disrespecting your time and they're not appreciating that you're finished work and you're showing them you're always available, he can be like, interesting. She clearly doesn't care if her time's being walked over, and he's going to continue the same behavior. You have to have consistent standards, consistently with the same people, consistent consequences, consistently in all areas of your life. That is one of the most respecting things, because that shows it's genuine standards and comes from real self-respect, not a performance you're trying to put on to make people see you and treat you in a different way. Self-respect is not a personality trait. Self-respect is a behavior. It's something you have to practice all the time, and it very much comes from how much you value yourself, which comes from your self-worth. So if you want to go a little bit further on this topic, I'm going to recommend some videos on the screen around self-worth. Subscribe for 2 videos every single week on confidence, boundaries, self-respect, all of the good stuff, and I will see you in my next video. Bye. Every single day. Oh my gosh, I was wondering why the light was so gross, and it's because I had my laptop and I've just filmed it that way the whole time. Slay. Anyway, you're on dates and you're just like, how did that happen? Is that a thing? Self-respect. What?